Karen towed my squad car. Then my chief showed up. I had just pulled up for what was supposed to be a routine call, nothing dramatic. Nothing that would take more than a few minutes. The engine was still warm. The lights were off. And my marked squad car was parked clearly in view near the curb. I hadn't even closed my door fully when I heard shouting behind me. A woman in oversized sunglasses and a bright HOA badge was marching toward my car. Phone already recording. Face twisted in that familiar look of someone itching for authority. She started yelling about unauthorized vehicles and private property, even though the emergency lights and department insignia were impossible to miss. I calmly showed her my badge and explained I was on duty, responding to a call. She didn't even pause. Instead, she actually smirked and said rules were rules and that police officers didn't get special treatment in her neighborhood. Before I could finish another sentence, a tow truck rolled in like it had been waiting around the corner. The driver jumped out and immediately started hooking chains under my squad car while she stood there narrating the whole thing to her phone, telling her viewers this was how you deal with entitled cops. Residents started peeking through their blinds. A couple of them whispered, clearly uncomfortable, but no one stepped in. I radioed dispatch, keeping my voice steady, but inside I could feel that sinking realization, the one where you understand someone has just made a decision that's about to blow up their entire life. As the tow truck lifted my squad car off the ground, Karen folded her arms, smiled straight at me, and said, maybe next time you follow the rules. As the tow truck pulled away with my squad car, I forced myself to stay calm, even though every instinct told me this situation was spiraling fast. What Karen didn't realize, what she couldn't possibly have known, was that the moment that car moved, a silent chain of events had already started. The vehicle's GPS was still live, transmitting its location in real time straight to dispatch. My body cam hadn't stopped recording either. And every second of her commentary, every order she barked at the tow driver, was being uploaded automatically. I keyed my radio and quietly confirmed the unit number and last known location. Dispatch didn't need me to explain much. There was a brief pause, then a tone in their voice that told me they already understood the gravity of what had just happened. A marked patrol vehicle doesn't just disappear. It sets off alerts, internal ones most civilians never hear about. The tow truck driver started to glance at me through his mirror, his confidence draining by the second as his phone began buzzing nonstop. Karen, on the other hand, was enjoying herself far too much. She bragged loudly about how she handled the situation, waving the signed tow authorization like a trophy. She had no idea that signing that form didn't protect her, it implicated her. Dispatch informed me that the car's route was being logged and forwarded up the chain, and that supervisors were already being notified. This was no longer a misunderstanding or a parking dispute. From the department's perspective, a government vehicle had been taken without authorization. As I watched the tow truck disappear down the road, I realized something chillingly clear. Karen thought she had just proven a point. In reality, she had just created a trail of evidence so precise and so complete that there would be no way for her to talk her way out of what came next. I followed them to the tow yard, still trying to give Karen a chance to undo what she started. The moment we arrived, she shifted from smug to aggressive, like she sensed the ground might be slipping under her feet. She planted herself in front of the office door and announced that my squad car wasn't going anywhere unless I paid the standard release fee. When I asked how much, she didn't even blink. $850. Cash only. No receipt. No exceptions. I reminded her, again, that the vehicle belonged to the city and that this situation had already been escalated. She laughed loudly so everyone around could hear and accused me of trying to intimidate her. She went on a rant about corrupt cops and how she was finally standing up to abuse of power. A few employees stood frozen, pretending not to listen, but their faces said everything. They knew this was wrong. My radio crackled again, low and calm, asking for confirmation that the vehicle was being held against release after official contact had been made. Karen snatched the phone from her pocket and started filming again, saying this was proof she was being harassed. She even threatened to call the media. claiming she was the victim of police retaliation. Every word she spoke just dug the hole deeper. When dispatch informed the tow yard directly that the vehicle was not to be held and must be released immediately, Karen stepped in front of it and crossed her arms. "Not until I am paid," she said flatly. That was the moment it stopped being arrogance and became something else entirely. Standing there, listening to her refuse a lawful order, I knew this wasn't going to end with paperwork. This was about to turn criminal. The sound of multiple engines pulling into the tow yard broke her momentum mid-sentence. Karen spun around just as my chief stepped out of an unmarked vehicle. Calm, composed, and carrying the kind of presence that instantly drains bravado from a room. Behind him were two supervisors, internal affairs, and a city attorney, people who don't show up for misunderstandings. Karen's face shifted rapidly, confusion replacing confidence as she tried to laugh it off and ask who everyone was. My chief didn't raise his voice. He didn't argue. He simply asked for the tow authorization paperwork. Karen eagerly handed it over, still convinced she was in control, insisting she was enforcing community rules and protecting residents from entitled officers. The chief read the document silently, then asked her one simple question. Did she personally authorize the towing and detention of a marked police vehicle? She nodded proudly, even pointing to her signature. That's when the air changed. The chief handed the paperwork to the city attorney and explained, in painfully clear terms, that towing and holding a government vehicle without authorization constituted felony theft. Karen tried to interrupt, shouting that she didn't know and that no one told her it was illegal. The chief calmly replied that ignorance didn't change the law. Her voice started cracking as the realization hit. One of the supervisors instructed the tow yard to shut down operations immediately pending investigation. Karen began backing away, saying there must be some mistake, that this was being blown out of proportion. Then the cuffs came out. As they were placed on her wrists, she screamed about lawsuits and abuse. But no one reacted, watching her being escorted away. Still protesting, I understood something important. She hadn't lost control because of me. She lost it the moment she decided rules applied only to everyone else. The fallout didn't take long, and it was nothing like the slap on the wrist ending Karen probably imagined. Within hours, the charges were official grand theft auto, abuse of authority, and interference with government operations. The HOA board she once ruled with an iron grip went into full damage control mode, distancing themselves so fast it was almost impressive. Emergency meetings were called, resignations submitted, and by the end of the week, the same neighbors who once feared her were openly testifying against her. Emails, videos, and complaints poured in, painting a clear picture of a pattern that had gone unchecked for far too long. Her job didn't survive the news cycle. Neither did her reputation. The tow company she relied on lost its operating license pending investigation, and the civil lawsuit from the city followed shortly after. Karen went from issuing fines and barking orders to standing silently in a courtroom, eyes down, hands folded, waiting to hear how much of her life would be dismantled next. When she finally looked up, it wasn't defiance in her eyes, it was panic. She tried apologizing later, asking if there was anything she could do to fix this. But some things don't rewind. The damage was already done, and the consequences were bigger than any single person could undo. Watching it all unfold, I didn't feel triumphant or angry, just resolved. She thought she was enforcing rules. In reality, she was abusing power she never truly had. And the system she believed she could bully ended up doing exactly what it was designed to do: hold her accountable. If you love seeing Karen's face consequences, subscribe.